Welcome to the Dash Mindset Podcast. I'm Sherry Zievenbergen. You were born, you're gonna die, and your adventure is your dash in between. So make the most of it. Unlock your potential in all aspects of your dash by embracing your uniqueness and living in a way that's authentic to you, not by doing more things, but by focusing on the right things. I'm a former corporate leader turned coach who's on my own journey, and I'm passionate about helping you on your journey too. So on the podcast, we'll explore how to live authentically by deciphering who you truly are and what you truly want. Are you ready to take a step toward designing your dash? Someday doesn't actually exist, so let's do it now. Hello, everyone. Today, I am excited to share TJ Bennett with you. I was recently on TJ's podcast, the DesuckifyWork podcast, which I love. So today I'm having him and I'm so excited. It just occurred to me, TJ, I might have to have you make a noise, which I didn't tell you. And for everyone listening, if that makes no sense to you, it will eventually. Which is the case with a lot of things I say, I suppose. So anyway, welcome, TJ. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I am really excited for this. Yeah.
All right. So TJ, tell us about what you do. Tell us a little bit about your story, however much of your story you desire, and we'll go from there.
All right. So, you mentioned I host the DesuckifyWork podcast. So that's kind of my mission, I guess, is to make work better for folks, because I think we've definitely experienced when it sucks. I think hopefully most of us have experienced when it's not so sucky. And so we know there's opportunities for it to get better. And so I like to, in addition to hosting the podcast, I work as an executive coach, and I work with leaders and teams to make their work better. Whether it's an individual who's trying to be a better leader, whether it's a team who's maybe struggling to kind of really kind of coalesce and work well together, whether it's a culture that just needs a little bit of a refresh, whatever it is, that's kind of what I'm doing. I spent about 25 years prior to that working in the advertising world. So if you wonder where a name like DesuckifyWork comes from, it's both because, I spent my life coming up with fun, goofy, silly ideas for clients, and I decided to do it for myself. And if you've known anybody who's worked in the advertising industry, we're pretty good at the making work suck part. And so it doesn't always suck. It's a pretty fun career, but it's one of those businesses that we sometimes make it more complicated than it needs to be. And I think that frustrated me at times and led me to where I am today. So 25 years in advertising and the last handful as a coach and doing the podcast thing.
And you work a lot of hours in advertising, right? It's just kind of known for just lots of hours. So although you're coming up with fun stuff for people, it's not fun when you're doing it, 70 hours a week.
It can be pretty intense. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
How did you get into advertising?
Semi-randomly, I would say. There was a few things that kind of came together. So when I got out of college, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to work in business. I got a business degree, and I'm like, I'm going to go work in business. My dad was a businessman. I'm like, I'll figure something out. And I did, kind of a corporate job for, I don't know, maybe a year and a half. And I will honestly say the whole time I was there, I really had no idea what my job was. I was like, what is this even? It was just so weird to me. They would just occasionally, it was just like, hey, here's some stuff and go, fill out this spreadsheet and add this data. And I'm like, I don't get it. I'm like, this can't possibly be the thing that I do. So
you're paying me for this.
So I was like, what else could I do? And during that time, I always enjoyed writing, and I found myself after college, I was just writing a lot, not advertising, not creative stuff like that, more like opinion pieces on the state of the world. You're young and angsty, and you're just like, you all suck, all you old people, and, of course now I'm one of them.
But you don't suck. You don't suck. That's the difference.
I appreciate that. But, so I was just writing a lot, and I was like, well, what could I do with writing? And so I started exploring that. I thought maybe I'd go to journalism school, and I actually applied to a couple and got into a school, and I thought maybe I'll go there. And then as that got closer, I was like, nah, that's not it. And then randomly, my my cousin, he's a year older than me, and he showed up at an Easter dinner thing. And he had in advertising, you have like a portfolio of your work. Now it's all digital, but back in the day, it was like literally like a book. And he brought this to Easter dinner he was all excited. Like, I got a new job. Look what I do. And I was like, wait, that's a job? Like, you get to sit there and just come up with fun ideas for ads. And I'm like, how do you get this job? And he just started explaining to me. And basically it was, you didn't necessarily have to go to school for it. It was just, can you come up with some ideas and put them together in some kind of portfolio? And so I started thinking about that, started working on that. And then I ended up getting a job at a temporary job this is after I left that early business job. And it was a temp job for a magazine publisher, and they didn't have anybody, they needed to have ads and nobody wanted to write them. And I was like, I'll do it. And so I started writing ads for this magazine publisher. I started putting my portfolio together. And then I finally started, I found a job in an ad agency. So it was a weird, windy kind of a thing. But once I was there, I was like, oh yeah, this is me. This is what I want to do. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you had no idea what you wanted to do after school, because
Yeah.
the kind of implied maybe expectation is that kids graduate and know what they want to do.
Yeah.
We don't know what we want to do as adults, but we think that they
I know.
should know what's happened. Like, you don't even understand what the options are at that point. So that is
Yeah.
so cool. And had he
Yeah.
not come to East, had he not brought his portfolio, I mean, who knows, what your life would look like right now. But
I know.
it
I
would
might have
seem
never
so
realized
perfect
that was
for you.
real. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, wait,
Yeah.
I just get to do this fun stuff. That is so cool.
Yeah.
So, did your cousin stick with advertising?
He did. Yeah. He's had a great career. He still does it, actually. I think kind of more freelance consulting at this stage. But yeah, he stayed. He worked as a writer and a creative director, and even, directed commercials and all that kind of stuff. He's done all that stuff. Yeah.
That is so fantastic. Okay, so you did the advertising thing. It was a lot of fun. And you came up with it's kind of funny because you said you come up with like fun stuff for other people.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that was part of it, but I guess sometimes when I think about advertising, I think about it, not that I have really thought about it that much, but I guess if I did, I would think that a lot of it was kind of serious. Like, oh, we
Sure.
need to have this corporate campaign for this corporation.
It can be like, I mean, there's a bit of an ongoing sort of tug of war in advertising between a lot of ad agencies and clients, agencies trying to push for more. And I won't say it's always quote unquote fun, like funny, but you're trying to push for clever, interesting,
Right.
smart, a point of view. So, which is still fun to me. And I think for most of us in the business, so even if it's a serious business and they want it to be heavy, I think about a business like IBM. So I never worked on IBM, but over the years, IBM has done some amazing advertising. It's very rarely funny or maybe a little cheeky, but it's usually really smart, really clever, and really makes you think. And like, that's a lot of what you get to do in advertising. And then some of it's fun and funny and silly, and some of it's dry. Some of it's, you try to make it fun and interesting or something, and there's just no room for it. They're just like, no, just say the thing and it's fine. But most of the time you're at least trying. You're at least trying to create something that feels interesting, that will connect. Because I think the truth is that maybe not everybody sees, but like, even if you're talking about like, we have a new hard drive and it's got, 5 terabytes of data, and it all sounds really dry. Like, people don't make that decision because it has 5 terabytes of data and it's got some kind of cool processor. Like, it's emotional, right? You're trying to connect to the gut and the heart for people. And so that's generally what we're always trying to push. And a good career is one where, you kind of land enough of them. And I think I did. I think, some of us have better luck than others, but you're always trying. Yeah.
So at what point did you realize, and maybe there wasn't a particular just moment in time, this moment of magic, but you realized, okay, this is it. This is my thing.
Pretty early, I would say. I mean, it's interesting because I think about the early days of my career, and I in addition to kind of fumbling around with like, what do I do? Like, who am I? All the normal questions. Like, I had some health stuff go on early on where my kidneys were failing when I was young. So when I was 19, I was diagnosed with kidney disease. And when I was 23, I went on dialysis for my kidneys. So coming out of college was not just coming out of college for me. I'm going through this whole thing. And I think that added to I can't possibly just sit at a desk and like move numbers around all day. That can't
Right.
possibly be what I'm doing here. And then like about 6, 7 months after I started dialysis, I got a kidney transplant from my brother. And then I was like, well, no doubt, I'm not going to just fall back into this like boring corporate nonsense. Like I need to do something that actually like feels worthwhile. And so that was where that journey, and it took, I would say from the time I got my transplant until the time I really found my way into advertising, it was a couple of years of, am I going to go to grad school? Am I going to do this? Fumbling with some temp jobs. And then finally, the Easter thing, the, the temp job where I got to write some ads happened, and then it just flowed. But once I was in it, it was like clear. I was like, oh, this is it. Like it didn't take more than probably a few months, maybe. Yeah.
What an amazing story. If you had not been diagnosed with kidney disease,
Yeah.
do you think your life would have turned out differently? Do you think you would have just kind of gone into or stayed in the world where you're like, okay, I guess
Yeah.
I'll move these numbers around. I don't really understand the point or why you're
Yeah.
paying me, but whatever.
I think it's possible. Yeah. I mean, cause I think we all kind of get that training of like, yeah, this is just what you do. Like
Yeah.
you go and like, it was a good job with a good company. Like it was like, on paper, like a good thing. So I could easily imagine it being like, okay, let me just figure this out and try to get into something that maybe I at least know what I'm doing. But like, um, but I could have imagined like, yeah, this is what you're supposed to do. You stay here, you work a certain amount of time, you get promoted a few times, and then life is good. So I do think that the health issues definitely like made me think differently about what
Yeah.
life meant. Yeah.
And you didn't have to wait until you were in your 40s or 50s and realize, wait a minute,
Yeah.
my kidneys might fail. I mean, they had already failed you and you figured it out earlier on. It feels
Yeah.
so often it has to be this big thing when we, realize, wait a minute, I don't really understand the point of all this.
Yeah. No, it's true. I think it's an interesting thing because I do in many ways think of it as a blessing because it got me to look at life differently at an early age. Um, there were definitely very hard parts about it, um, but yeah, it kept me from maybe spending a lot of time doing stuff that, yeah, would have to wait until I was in my 40s to have that aha moment. By the time I was in
Right.
my 40s, I was, having a really nice advertising career and feeling great about it. It wasn't until probably late 40s into my early 50s that I started thinking there was a time for a change. And it wasn't like, oh my God, what have I been doing my whole life? It was more like, what's next?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And to think about most 19-year-olds, I mean, at 19, you think you have like 300 years to live,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, that's so great. I did not know that part of your story. Okay,
Yeah.
so clearly all of that, if you look back, you can connect all the dots. Now you have DesuckifyWork. So
Yeah.
okay, tell us about your podcast and how you came up with that idea.
So, yeah, I mean, it's funny. So I started, doing the coaching thing about 4 years ago. And when I started that, probably even before I started that, I think I thought I wanted a podcast just because I was a podcast junkie from the time podcasts started becoming pretty popular. And I always thought, I think I'd be pretty good at that. I just knew I loved talking to people, particularly one on one. I just enjoy this kind of communication and I love the connection of it. And I love like drilling deep into stuff. Like I just knew I'd enjoy it. So it was always percolating. And then I think maybe a year plus into my sort of coaching stuff, and I was putting out mostly written content, hey, let's make work better, blah, blah, blah. And having fun with it, I just sort of stumbled on this phrase, DesuckifyWork. I don't remember whether I said that or the desuckification of work or something like that. But I used
Something
that.
that's going to suck less. Yes.
I
Okay.
used that combination of words. And even as I said, I was like, there's something here. And then I noticed that a lot of people were commenting on it. They were like, oh my God, desuckify work or desuckification. Like that's it. And I was like, oh, that's my podcast. I've been fumbling around thinking it could be this, it could be that. I was like, that's the podcast. And I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I generally knew it was going to be kind of like what we're doing here. And it was going to be, talking to people who are hopefully out there making work better for people. And so I just said, I'm going to do this. I went on LinkedIn to hold myself accountable. I put a post out and I said, I'm going to launch this podcast in like the next 2 months. Here's what it's called. Here's the idea. And then I even put I tagged like 10 people. I go, and these folks would be amazing guests. Please let me know if you're up for it. And not only did I get a lot of people just saying like, that's awesome. And a few of folks who actually did hold me accountable, like checked in like a week later, like, how are things going? Like 5 out of those 10 people I put down, like said, yeah, count me in, including like one guy who is the founder of like a pretty well-known company. He's the founder of, Basecamp, the project management
Yeah.
software. So Jason Fried is the co-founder of that company. And he was kind of my reach. Like I was like, and he was like, yeah, let's talk. And so he was like guest number 7 on my podcast by the time we scheduled him in. So like, I was like, oh, so this is a thing. And I'm like, oh, I have to do it. And, and then I figured out, well, what do you need to do a podcast? And I talked to a friend of mine who did some of that kind of stuff and got a mic and, got some software. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm just going to do it. And then I just did it. And I've been doing it for, 2.5 years now. So
I love that. So often when we don't know how, we just decide, oh, well, I don't know how, so I'm not going to do that thing. But you posted it to LinkedIn before you knew what kind of mic to buy, before you knew anything about doing a podcast. You just knew, okay, I'm going to desuckify work for people. I'm going to go ahead and post this. I love that so much because that holds us back for so many reasons, but we don't know how until we know how, and you can't make the decision to figure out how first.
Yeah. It was interesting. I knew I was going to need that push. So that's why I did the LinkedIn post. I think I was a little bit fortunate on the how, in the sense that having worked in advertising and worked in spaces where we created things, I was like, I can figure this out, because that's not that I ever created a podcast, but I was like, I roughly knew, okay, there's an editing tool I'll need. And I'm like, I can figure those things out, because I sort of worked in that space enough that it gave me a little confidence. And then I said, okay, if somebody's holding me accountable, well, then I'll really figure it out. And so, and I was fortunate. There were a few people who I had good conversations with, and they told me, use this tool, use this. And then the editing tool I use, I had already kind of played with just a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I can make that work. I knew I could just figure it out enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is such a great example of the fact that you had confidence in the fact that you could figure it out, because confidence is really just knowing you can figure it out. Do you feel like people, your advertising career helped you become more confident because you were just constantly creating? You didn't know what you do. It's not like a client hires you and says, I want you to do this, right? I mean, you figure it out. You're just constantly in a state of figuring it out, which I guess is kind of what life is, but
yeah,
in a creative way in advertising.
Yeah. I mean, I think the fact that it was baked into the job that there was a certain amount of figure it out every time. And they might be pretty specific about what they asked for. They might be more vague about what they asked for. And no matter what it was, like, that was actually the fun. Like, to me, like, figuring stuff out, like, that was why I did my job. Like, that was the most fun thing. And I think about it, as I evolved into coaching work, and it's a different lens, but it's more like, okay, now I help other people figure it out. And what's funny is, well, there's 2 things I think that are funny. One is, as occasionally I run into struggles in coaching, I forget that I have that figure it out ability sometimes. And I'm like, dude, what happened to that? But with clients, like, that's the biggest thing. Like, once a client can recognize, like, oh, I don't have to know how to do the thing. I just have to trust that I can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can kind of look and go, oh, yeah, well, of course, I've been figuring it out for 10, 20, 30 years doing whatever I've been doing. Because every job, I mean, whether it's advertising or working in accounting, I'm sure there's like a billion things you're figuring out every day. And we don't give ourselves credit for it
Right.
because we think, well, I did it. How hard could it be? And that's this weird brain trap we get into where we're like, how hard could anything I have done have ever been? And it's like, probably pretty hard because 10 other people couldn't do it or wouldn't do
Right.
it, Yeah.
And that is, we kind of forget about the things we have figured out because we've figured them out, but
Yeah.
that should
Yeah.
all develop confidence that we can figure anything out. Well, I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that and I'm just picking on you because you said it this way. I think
Yeah.
we've all been in roles like this. You were in a role, you didn't really understand the point of any of it, and you figured it out, right?
Yeah.
I moved numbers from here to
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. I guess I'll get good at that.
I,
Yeah.
okay, and just to be clear, you're going to pay me for this. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
show up
All
tomorrow.
right. Sure. Do we know why I'm moving those numbers? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't
I
matter,
don't
dude.
even bother
We
explaining.
move numbers. That's what we do. That's the why. That's your why.
And this is normal adulthood right here.
Yeah.
So I'll
This
just
is
keep
it.
doing
All
this
right.
for a
Okay.
while.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, can you tell us about I'm realizing I don't know this story either. What made you decide to leave the advertising world? Or were you doing the podcast and everything on the side? I don't know the answer to that.
I wasn't. I was doing a little bit of coaching on the
Okay.
side. So probably the first coaching thing I did was probably about 8 years ago now. And I left advertising about almost 4 years ago now. And I didn't do a lot of coaching. I mean, I worked with this one company for a bit, and then I had two or three other clients that just kind of came in, and I worked with them for 6 months here, 6 months there. And it was interesting because I knew I really enjoyed the coaching. I didn't fully know quite how to do it. I wasn't formally trained. My training was, well, my dad was an executive coach for years. So I sort of osmosis through him talking about it.
Right.
And he even coached me a little bit. Um, and then, read some books and, maybe talked to a couple of coaches. So I had like a vague sense. And I also realized that a lot of what I was doing at the end of my advertising career, the things I was enjoying more was the mentoring and that side of my job. Like one of my favorite parts of my job was the one-on-ones with my team. I was like, this is so fun to just talk to them and see like, what's going on? What's working for you? What's not? What do you want out of your career? Like, I was like, this is really fun. And it's not that I ever lost my interest in the coming up with the ideas or helping teams come up with the ideas, but it faded a little bit in terms of like,
Yeah.
when I was really in it, it's like this obsession. It's like, oh my God, I can't wait to figure out the next one and solve the next problem and figure out the thing. And it was more like, oh, this is fun. I get to do this again. Cool. But it had worn a little bit. So I was like,
Yeah.
all of those factors kind of pulled me to say like, let me see if I can do this coaching thing full time. And then there was also, I was looking for a little bit more flexibility in my life because my wife and I, our situation here at home was a little different. And I was like, okay, let me shift some things and get to a place where I can be less tied to a corporate schedule as well. So that was part of it too. And then I just said, all right, I'm going to quit my job like a nut and just like say, yeah, goodbye regular paycheck and hello spending money on coach training and fingers crossed and all that stuff that something happens with it. And, I've been lucky that things have worked out pretty well, but it's funny because at the time it didn't feel that crazy. But I
Yeah.
think the people who saw me doing it, they might have been like, what are you doing, dude? Like build your coaching business while you still have a job. And I just didn't want to do that. So
Right.
I was like, I like sort of biting the bullet and just doing the thing. That
Yeah.
just worked for me. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, the things that are particularly great in life are usually the things that they feel rational at the time, but they seem, wildly irrational from the perspective of other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But in that moment, you're just, okay, this is what I'm doing. Here
Yeah.
I go. So what were people saying when you were hearing, dude, what
Yeah. I mean, I
doing
think the
there?
biggest thing, was two things. I think some people were just like, wow, that's a really radical change, both in terms of sort of quitting a full-time job from a career you've been in for 25 years and doing pretty well at. Also, just the nature and the content of the job. They're like, you're going from advertising to coaching. That feels like a very
Mm-hmm.
hard turn. It never felt that way to me. I'm like, this is part of my job now. I coach people, I mentor people. Like, it never felt like it was going to be such a record scratch moment. But I think for some people, it felt like it would be. Um, and then, yeah, I think some more sort of practical minded people, including people I had worked with, were like, wouldn't you want to just stay on or maybe go part time? And I was like, I see the benefit of that. Like, I could see how that could work. But for me, again, there was just like, I needed to fully flip the switch.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to be all in so that I knew that would incentivize me to start doing all the figuring out that I needed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, you said a couple of things in there that made me realize, okay, one, um, the fact that you still enjoyed your career. It's not
Yeah.
like, oh, things have gone to crap and now I have to figure something out. You really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's just you weren't obsessed with it or didn't have the excitement you did. I was talking about this was somebody earlier this week about the fact that they wanted to make a change, but work was fine. Like it was
Mhm.
fine, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And fine so often keeps us where we are because it feels
Yeah.
fine. And it
Yeah.
sometimes oh, well, everybody thinks I'm going to be irrational if I do something different. But I think that's really the best time to consider something else is when it is
Yeah.
fine. Because who wants to like, reach the end of life and think, well, it was fine. Life was
Yeah.
fine, right?
Yeah.
But that also just keeps us stuck. So anyway, this individual is going to figure something new out because
Mm.
she doesn't want it to be fine. And
Yeah.
usually, I mean, I know there have been times when I waited until something was, just really sucked, right?
Yeah.
And then that's
Mhm.
the worst time to try something new. You're in the
Yeah.
despair trying to
Yeah.
figure something out, and that doesn't go well. So I
I
love that
agree.
you enjoyed your job and
Yeah.
you made a bold move and did something about it, and it's working out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, I think sometimes desperation does, you need that push, and I get that.
Yeah.
There were definitely times in my advertising career where desperation pushed me to kind of like move jobs, like where I was at a particular job and it
Mhm.
sucked so bad. I was like, I'm going and I'm on the phone
Right.
24/7 until somebody says, come over.
You would like me to
So
scoop manure? Okay, that's fine. I'm in. Yeah.
yeah, whatever. You need me to just move numbers back and forth like
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, I'm on it. But in this case, it was nice to kind of like, I had a little bit of time to just kind of sit with it and think about it and, talk with my wife about it and talk with my dad about it and kind of go, okay. And it felt very like, okay, this part of my work journey is complete and that's okay. And what's
Mhm.
funny is like, I still do some of that work, like freelance consulting stuff, like,
Yeah.
and I still like it.
Yeah.
I just know I don't want to be in it the
Mhm.
same way I was. Right.
Mhm.
So it is interesting. Like you can break away from something and then it actually allows you to feel you can still be connected to it if you choose to. And it's actually freeing in a way that like I felt a little bit stuck in it until I made the decision to leave it. And now when I go back and do a project here and there, it's like, oh, this is fun. I can do this. Yeah. No big
And I
deal.
think sometimes we can build resentment toward a thing. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily toward a person, but like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm resentful of my career or I'm resentful
Yeah.
of the fact that my focus has been advertising. But you don't have
Mhm.
any resentment because you chose, I'm gonna walk away. And clearly it doesn't make a lot of rational sense to be resentful toward a thing.
Yeah.
But still, we're
So
not
we do it.
rational
Yeah. We're
beings.
not very rational, are we? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
So,
rational.
yeah.
Um, okay, the fact that to someone else, advertising and coaching are two very different things is also
Yeah.
interesting because we do that with so many things.
Hmm.
There's, I mean, coaching is in every aspect of life, and especially as you became more seasoned in your career, that's a lot of what you were doing.
Yes, I sprinkled a lot of seasoning over my beard over the years.
They were
Yeah.
just thrown at you, lots of sprinkles.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, there's something interesting that you're uncovering there that it took me a beat to uncover, which is um yeah, there is this layer of coaching I think that's built into just life, meaning our ability to support others in our life and help others kind of see who they are, right? I mean, I think that's one of the best things about being in a relationship with somebody is you help each other kind of actually really see who they are. And as a coach,
Yeah.
that's like a big part of your job. So um, I enjoyed that when I was working and helping people realize like you're really strong here and you really have this beautiful gift in this way. Um, the other piece that came to me as I started uncovering more of what coaching was too is that coaching is actually from the coach E's perspective in particular, a very creative act. I mean, it's effectively a co-creation between the coach and the coachee, but
Mm.
you are creating what's next for yourself
Mhm.
and you are learning about who you are so that you can figure out the path forward and create that. And so I've actually found that some of the tools I used in my advertising career end up being really useful in coaching for people. We had this one document called the creative brief, and it was effectively the thing that launched every project. And there's sort of a love-hate relationship within the business because sometimes you get a creative brief and you're like, oh my God, I could come up with 1,000 ideas tomorrow based off
Yeah.
of this information. And sometimes you're like you might as well have just given me that spreadsheet with all the numbers that I was moving around because this is nothing. Um, but but when they're good, they're fantastic, right? Because basically what they're doing is taking information and background and data and saying, here's this really interesting space to play in. And so what I try to invite my clients to do is I basically ask them to build a creative brief for their coaching work. And the way I do it is kind of pull in some of the background data about yourself and about your life, and then like point towards something. And what I do this, I say, what's the headline that would describe the most beautiful outcome at the end of our 6 months together? And people write that out. And sometimes it's a little longer than a headline, but that's
Yeah.
okay as long as it works. But it, it paints this picture. And then it's like all of your energy, all of your creative energy can go into trying to make that thing. And so then we co-create towards that headline together. So I'm actually like following a very similar process with people as I did in advertising. It's just we're not making ads, we're building a life or leadership skills or communication skills or whatever people want. So it's been really fun to kind of see that emerge as well.
Oh, and that seems so apparent now that you're
Yeah. And
saying
now
it.
that it showed up, yeah. Yeah, it's
You're
like, oh yeah, there it
describing it.
is.
Did that
Yeah.
take you a minute to really
It
recognize that?
did. It did. It took me a beat because I think I had to understand what coaching was a little bit more first, like as I took my coaching program and stuff. And I noticed even as I was studying like the word creation and creativity and similar kinds of words were showing up. And there was this phrase co-creation that it came up a lot. And so I think that sparked it for me. And then I just sort of realized like there's a certain flow to coaching and there's a gathering sort of background insights and understanding about whether it's through assessment or values exercises or whatever, like, and I'm like, well, that's really similar to advertising where we do a lot of research about the customer and about the company and the brand and try to figure out like, who are they and who are they trying to talk to? And then it's like, okay, from there you move into in coaching. It's like, okay, well, now we're going to sort of explore this and play and experiment and figure things out. I'm like, well, that's the idea. That's the whole idea process.
Yeah.
You throw stuff out there and maybe you put it on the wall for a little bit and you look at it and go, that's interesting. And then you come back tomorrow and go, it's actually not that interesting. But that's kind of like trying something in your life. Like, let me see
Yeah.
if getting up at 5 a.m. is going to make me a more productive person. And then you do it for a week and you're like, no freaking way.
No,
Like,
no way.
that's the
Not
dumbest
productive
thing
at all.
ever. But like, that's what coaching is, right? It's like you
Yeah.
try these things and then you learn and you grow. So I was like, and then I was like, coaching is very often sort of goal directed. Like there's a thing you're pointing to. And I was like, in the creative brief, they call it the single most important thought. What is that thing we want to evoke with this work? And I was like, well, that's this headline thing that I ultimately came up with. I was like, what is the thing you're pointing to? So, but I had to sort of live in the coaching space a little bit and then go, oh, this matches up pretty neatly. And then I just kind of experimented with sort of how that works with clients. And so far, I think for most, the headline really helps people.
Oh, that makes so much sense. You
Yeah.
know, it's interesting too. You said you kind of had to live in the coaching space. We, with anything in life, we kind of have to just try something and
Yeah.
kind of be there for a while. And I mean, I know my brain wants to have everything planned out and figured out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just going to stare at my screen and then it'll come to me, right? But that's
Mm-hmm.
not the way it works. You have to just kind of be in that
Yep.
in the mess for a while, and then but it came to you in phases, and now you're telling me for the first time, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, duh. Right? That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of the way everything in life works. And
Mm-hmm.
you knew you wanted to be a coach, and you were doing it well. And I don't know, we're just constantly evolving as
Yeah.
humans, and we never
Yeah.
really have it figured out, even though we think we should. At 18, when we graduate, we should have
I
it
know. I know. It's
figured out.
amazing. I can't believe that any 18, I mean, even when I was 18, I was like, I had friends who were like, I'm going to pre-med and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how in the world do you know that at 25
Yeah.
you want to be a doctor? You know,
Yeah.
like how could you possibly know that? What is going on in your brain?
Yeah.
Like, do you have a different kind of brain than I do? I mean,
Right.
and over time, you learn about like the prefrontal cortex isn't even really developed. Particularly,
Yeah.
I think in guys it takes even longer, but even for women, I think it's by 23, 24, and for
Yeah.
guys it's like 25, 26. So it only makes sense, but we've got this structure set up where you graduate high school and then you go into this big open place of college if you choose that path. And pretty soon they're going to say, well, who do you want to be? It's
Wait,
like,
what?
what I thought, like, to me, like, I think about people who go and mostly sort of study like liberal arts. And I think, wouldn't that be just nice for all of us to just spend 4 years just figuring out like, who am I? What does my
Mhm.
brain, heart, soul, gut resonate with?
Mhm.
What actually calls to me? And then go into some kind of training program that
Mhm.
lets you figure that out. But I guess everybody's different, right? Because I know people who've been a doctor for 30 plus years and they're very happy with it. So clearly it worked, but
Yeah.
um, I would say for the most folks who are that young, it's almost impossible to know what in the world I want to spend the next 30 plus years of my life doing. It
Right.
seems crazy to me, you know?
And also the fact that our brain automatically goes to what will I do for the rest of my life? Like we have to know
Right.
the plan.
Yeah.
It's going to be this thing. But that's such a great point about our brains aren't even fully developed.
Right.
What on earth?
It really is weird, right? I mean, and it's interesting. I mean, I think about this, you go way back in the day and, we were, as kids, you were working really probably pretty young. You're working on the farm or whatever,
Right.
and like, and like adulthood started earlier and it's sort of people sort of complain a little bit. Adulthood has been starting later,
Yeah.
kids are at home longer. And I get that on some level, like I can see like, that feels weird. But part of me is like, well, it also maybe makes sense so that kids can figure out who they are and what they want to do, um, and let their brain grow up a
Right.
little bit. It's weird because we sort of physically grow up first, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere through high school, most of us get to like adult size, and then like,
Size anyway. Yeah.
yeah, close enough, but like, and then, but the brain's still figuring it out, and like,
Yeah.
let alone like, beyond the sort of brain part of it, just like all the things that experience teaches us and infuses into our full body in terms of like how we want to show up in the
Mm-hmm.
world. If I met 18-year-old me, I don't even know if I could have a conversation with him. Dude. It's so dumb. I mean, like,
Talk to you.
like what? Like, I feel like it's almost a different language, you know?
Well, teenagers do actually speak a different language now.
Yeah.
Is that is
Yeah.
so my boys are 12 and
Uh,
14, and I also have a
Oh god.
30-year-old stepson.
Yeah.
He sounds more human-like, but,
Yeah.
um, uh, yeah, it's like I don't even know if what you said just now is a good thing or a bad thing. I don't
That's
really
probably the
know.
point, right? They
Yeah,
probably
I
wanna
know.
keep you guessing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But apparently they understand one another. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about so your dad was an executive coach because that's
Yeah.
or is he still? Is he retired?
He
And how did that
retired
play out in
probably
your
in the
life?
last couple of years. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, so my dad's 83 now, so he probably retired shortly after he turned 80. And he had slowed down a bit kind of through his 70s, I would say. Um, but my dad followed, his path is similar to mine in the sense that he was working for a number of years in a mostly sales and marketing career, although he did some other stuff, all with one company. He worked for AT&T for, you know, 30 years or 20 something years. And, got into his 50s. And I don't, at that point, he was thinking about retiring from that career. And, and I think at some point, what they do in all these big companies is anybody in your 50s, they dangle, they dangle a nice package at some point and they go, hey, you want to
Yeah,
leave? We'll pay you, a fairly good amount of money. And,
right. What we're
back
saying
in
is
a
you're old
yeah,
and yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you need to get out, but we're going to make it worth your while. And I think he took one of those. And then he had been working with an executive coach the last handful of years of his career. And so I think that kind of sparked him. He was like, kind of had the same reaction I did around coaching, which was, I think I'll be good at this.
Yeah.
And like, if you met my dad for 5 minutes, you'd be like, yeah, he'd be a good coach. Like, it's just obvious. Um, and so he went to kind of work with that his coach's business. So his coach had sort of set up a little business with a couple other coaches and he invited my dad into that world. And so, yeah, like from 50 something until roughly 80, he worked as a coach and primarily with big corporate clients, but he also had individual clients, nonprofits and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he mixed and matched. And it was really fun to sort of observe that shift because what I noticed with him was I think he liked his earlier career, maybe not to the degree that I liked advertising. Like, I don't think it
Mhm.
was much of an obsession, but it was more like a natural fit. Sales and marketing were a good fit for who he
Mhm.
is. Um, Coaching was like him.
Yeah.
And so to like witness that, and just see him showing up in that, I was like, oh, that's really neat. Both from like just a son seeing his dad like open up and light up in that way.
Mhm.
And to realize like there might be something down the road for me even. I was like, oh, okay. That sort of planted a seed that like maybe when I'm done and I'm old for my career, which in advertising you're old at like 35. So, you know, I hung around for a while
It's
longer.
kind of like the
Um,
Olympics or like
yeah,
professional sports. Yeah.
yeah. Like if you step into an ad agency and you're over 40, the first thing you're going to think is like, I feel like the creepy old person at the bar. Like, like that's kind of how it feels. Um, but regardless, I knew that there was maybe something at the end of that first career for me. Um, and yeah, he just had a lot of fun doing that career. And it was fun because he would talk about it and just naturally like we're working on this thing or we're trying this assessment or I'm working with this team or, I'm traveling to this office to go help this team. And he's working for all these big companies. And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. And then he would coach me a little bit as I was working through stuff. And I was like, okay, there's something there for sure.
Oh, that's so neat. So it planted a seed for you. And you had, I love how through your stories, you've had these seeds planted like, oh, Desuckify, that's a thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, my dad likes his career. Okay, that's a thing. And you didn't just, you know, blow everything up and decide, okay, I got to do something with this right now. But you did
Yeah.
make a note of it to do something
Mhm.
with it at some point before you
Yeah.
had it figured out.
Yeah. 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 And I'm still figuring it out, but that's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it when people actually just say, I'm still figuring it out because I know one thing that, okay, so at one point in my career, now in retrospect, it's clear that coaching was what I loved throughout my career. But
Hmm.
I was never called a coach. So it just
Yeah.
occurred to me, right?
Yeah.
At one point in my career, my husband said, "You know what? I think you'd be really good at coaching if you were to start your own coaching business." And
Hmm.
I remember where I was standing. I remember the whole thing, and I said, "How would I do that?" And I
Yeah.
didn't know, so I just went do, and went
Yeah.
on life. And I kind of forgot about it until later. And then I thought, "Oh yeah, we did have that conversation, right?"
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I didn't. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out, and we often don't even recognize that we're holding ourselves back because we're not, we don't know the answer to it.
Yeah. I think there's something really interesting in this tension between I'm figuring it out and then the belief that most of us carry, which is, well, I need to have it figured out.
Yeah.
Right. And I think about that, in the people that probably we both work with, like we're all carrying that tension. It's like, of course I'm still figuring it out. Like, how could nobody knows everything. So
Yeah.
like that should be just patently obvious for everyone. Even the
Yeah.
CEO of whatever company is still figuring it out.
Yeah.
And yet there is this unifying human belief that if somebody knew I was still figuring it out, then I would be a fraud and they would never want to work with me and I would never have a job and I would be destitute and all these things, right? Like we have this weird story and it's like, I, and there are days when I'm living in that story and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, what am I doing? And then, I was talking with a person who is coaching me a bit right now and they helped me kind of re-see that like yesterday. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. Cause I was having some doubts about like who I might be able to work with and all that. And I'm like, what if they don't think I'm like fully, have it all together? And it's like, well, who the hell does basically like,
And on the planet.
right. And but it really creates like, I think, and this is what, we talked a little bit about the idea of culture in business. And I think if businesses could really embrace a culture that says we're all figuring it out and you will never be penalized for living in that space, owning that space and sharing and talking about the fact that you're figuring it out. Because what I hear from all of my clients at some point is if somebody sees that I don't know this thing, I'm going to look dumb and they're going to yell at me, maybe fire me, whatever. And I see this, it makes me sad because I see it in like 24-year-olds who are already
Yes.
carrying that burden of like, I'm like, dude, you're 24. I mean, you really don't know anything. Yeah. I mean, you obviously know plenty, but like there's so much for you to know still. And like if anybody within a company should be given permission to not know all the things, it should be the 24-year-old junior
Yeah.
employee. And yet every person at that level that I talk to has this immense fear. And the reason is because from the CEO down, it starts with a CEO who believes I need to know everything. And
Hmm.
that's what being good at my job is. And
Hmm.
then that just inevitably trickles down. And it's not like the CEO is a bad person. It's
No.
just they're a human being struggling with the thing we all struggle with and they feel bad about it. And that just bleeds into the organization. Um, the organizations that find a way to embrace that failure is good are the ones I think who do the best. But you have to like, that's a really weird mind shift. Even I kind of hate that word because
Yeah.
failure is the big fat red F on my test in
Yeah.
second grade. That meant like, oh my God, if I get more of those, I'm not going to go to third grade. Like,
Right.
what in the world would I do then? And not going to third grade, basically feels like your life is over at that point,
Right.
right? Um, so I even wonder if we're just using the wrong words around it. And it's, some way of framing not having it all figured out as like a really wonderful part of the experimental process of working and living.
Yeah.
Like,
And that is such a good point because, yeah, when I mean, you just saying the big red F failure, and I don't
yeah.
even know. By the way, they don't just do the ABCDF thing in
Oh
schools anymore.
no.
They have points and you can redo things. I'm like, what is happening? But even because I'm old, looking back and I think second grade seeing an F is just like, oh my gosh, I have failed as
Yeah.
a human being. I probably
Yeah.
thought that in second grade, right?
Yeah.
And so we are conditioned to get good grades and
Mm-hmm.
and seek this external validation. We're not even actively seeking it, right? It's just this
Right.
expectation. We get this validation from someone else. And then
Mm-hmm.
that goes all the way through college. You got to get good grades. Because truly, I mean, if you were to flunk an exam in college, they
Yeah.
don't say, well, hey, good try. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
then you have to spend the rest of your college career making up for it. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you go into the world. How are you supposed to suddenly shift to, oh, failure is a
Yeah.
good thing?
Yeah.
What? On what planet? Right.
Yeah.
And so we just keep taking that through life, acting like we don't fail and acting like we have it figured out, even though we know 1 second, of course we shouldn't have it figured out. And then the next second, but I have to act like I do.
I know. It's such a, um, I don't know. It's this weird, like, mind trick.
Yeah.
And it traps us. And I think it's why so many people can feel stuck, because you want to grow and step out and, stretch and all these things. But there is this sort of almost paralyzing fear that can hold you back from really doing that. And so
Hmm.
you do it more incrementally and safely, but like somebody's sitting in a job and they're, you know, maybe not loving that job or doesn't sort of feed them in the way they want to. It's much easier to kind of just creep along in that safe space as
Hmm.
opposed to go like, I actually want to be over here, but oh my God, if I don't, if it's bad enough to not know what I'm doing here, I don't know what I'm doing at all there. How could I
Right.
possibly do that? And then, you bring in, well, now I'm 30, now I'm 40. Like, how could I
Yeah.
possibly show up that way? Um, but it's just, it's just our brain. Like, this is the thing that's always interesting, right? It's like, we think our brain is true. We think the voices are true in our head. And it's like, no, those are just the voices of our internal world trying to make sense of things. And they're making it up as much as all of us fully are, right? Like those
Right.
voices are just making it up. And it's up to us to like figure out like which ones do we listen to, which ones we dismiss, and actually start to recognize we maybe even have some power over what those voices ultimately say.
Right.
Um, but that's hard stuff, but that's
Yeah.
ultimately what I think when coaching gets really interesting is when you start to see sort
Yeah.
of behind the curtain a little bit and realize we have way more power and agency than we think we do. But it starts by recognizing it's okay to stumble a little bit.
Yeah. And I think
Mm.
that's really, I mean, no one ever told me, "Oh, the things that your mind is telling you aren't actually true." No one
Yeah.
t- no one tells us that.
No, no,
And even if somebody did, it'd be like, "What are you on? I don't
that's
understand."
crazy. Yeah.
What? That's crazy talk
That's insane. Of
to us.
course it's true. Yeah.
So we'd ignore someone if they did tell us. So
Yeah.
life is such a fun adventure. And I was talking recently to someone about uncertainty too. We so badly want to be certain about things, but there is
Mm-hmm.
certainty. There's
I
no
know.
certainty in life other than the
Yeah.
fact that we will die at some point. That's really
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And there's part of us that wants to know exactly what's going to happen, but if we did know, how terrible would that be, right? Like,
Right.
oh, I
Yeah.
know that this relationship isn't going to work, then what's the point? Or I know that
Yeah.
you know, I I'm going to hate this job, so what's the point? We have to go through all that stuff that
I know.
ultimately might not work to figure out
Yeah.
what will work.
Yeah. I think you'd be completely frozen if you actually knew.
Yeah,
Because then it's like, well, now I have to, like, do I want any of those things?
right.
Like,
Does it even
and
matter?
everything is going to end, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be an end to all of it, and ultimately to each of us, it's like, yeah, that could stop you in your tracks. So yeah, it's like we have to sort of start redefining what it means to be alive,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Mhm.
what does it mean to be a person alive? Um, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that I have certainty about everything that goes forward. It's about the experiences we have and what we learn from those experiences and actually just being in the experience.
Yeah, the
That's the
experience
thing.
itself.
That's the thing that's sort of, I think so much of our upbringing prevents us from doing because we're so forward looking.
Mhm.
and then you get to a certain point and inevitably you read some book about Buddhism or something, or, you go take a yoga class or something. And like somebody talks about being in the moment and being present. And it literally, again, feels like somebody speaking Greek. I'm like, what are
Yeah.
you talking about? Be present. How could I possibly be present? I don't even
Right.
know what that means, because I know I'm thinking about that,
Yeah.
that, or that, or I'm looking back and going, that was fun. But to be
Yeah.
present, okay, I'm staring at my hand. Now what? Like, and I still don't know that I fully know what that means,
Right.
but I get that it's a concept that's worth experimenting
Mhm.
with. And my sense is that the more you experiment with it, the more you're simply there and
Mhm.
you can actually like enjoy the moment. And the only thing I can think of as a good example of when you're present and you're not thinking about it is like that flow state, right?
Right.
When you're in a flow state, whether it's a work thing or you're playing a sport or working out or just going for a walk and just kind of immersed in nature, like you're there. And the thing is that most of our lives we're not there. And
Mhm.
we're
Mhm.
somewhere else while something's right in front of us, so that redefinition of what living is part of it is that I think is just like, what does it mean to just sit with whatever's in front of us and not try to get past it, through it, towards the thing, you know?
And I'm realizing too. So I spent a lot of my life, and I think a lot of us do. It's not just, oh, here's my story, and it's
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
but like, okay, I just gotta do well on this test. Just gotta graduate
Hmm.
school. Just gotta
Yeah.
graduate from college. Just gotta pass this exam or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when people talk about being present, it's like, what do you mean? Like I'm there through
Right.
all of it. And if
Yeah.
I'm just present, it feels like when we talk about presence, it means you're just supposed to sit and just be,
Yeah.
which sounds
Yeah.
like a ridiculous waste of time. And that's not
Yeah.
really, it's just being kind of just recognizing and really appreciating what you're
Yeah.
doing now without thinking, oh,
Hmm.
what's next? What's next? And that's
Yeah.
hard because
That's
we're
a
conditioned to be different.
that's a great distinction. I do think like the first reading of any kind of Buddhist thing, it does feel like, wow, what a weirdly passive way to live. Like I'm
Yeah,
just
passive. That's
there
the word.
and
Hmm.
I don't care and whatever. And it's not that. At least I don't think so. I think it is like being in the moment, being with the people you're with, and if you're alone, being
Hmm.
with the thing you're doing. And I've heard there's a guy who co-hosts a podcast. His name is Joe Hudson, and it's called The Art of Accomplishment. It's one of my favorite podcasts, and he speaks about it through the lens of enjoyment. So what he says is if you try to enjoy what you're doing, even just 10% more than normal, and he'll use an example like chopping an onion or washing the dishes. It's like, what does this look like if I enjoyed it 10% more? That actually creates presence because now you're with it and now you're like, okay, well, what am I doing? And you're just sort of immersed in it. And And the more you can sort of condition yourself to enjoy the things you're in, the more those flow states start to happen, the more you are just experiencing it. But it's not like detach yourself from cutting this onion. It's actually like go into it more deeply.
Yeah.
What, like for somebody might be like, I will enjoy this more if I really pay attention to creating symmetrical slices, if somebody is more sort of orderly. And
Hmm.
another person might be like, I'll enjoy it more if I do it just a little bit faster, or I'll do it more if I, try not to cry while I'm doing it. Whatever the thing is, I don't know.
Just
Like
don't cry.
whatever the thing is, but like finding your connection to the thing you're doing and seeing if that creates enjoyment. His sort of theory is enjoyment reduces friction, right? Instead of like grinning and bearing it, I got to chop this stupid onion or I got to wash these dumb dishes, right? And I'm going to think of anything else while I'm doing it. It's like, no, just wash it, enjoy it. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy seeing the little spot of dirt slowly wash away as you're, working the sponge against it. Like, enjoy that. And I find that to be a really interesting tool to kind of come back to if you're in a moment where you notice you're distracted or you notice you're getting pulled away. Um, just try to enjoy the thing, you know?
Oh, I love that. And I actually, it's making me realize I'm not particularly fond of cooking, which is unfortunate because I am fond of eating, but not the cooking part.
Yeah.
But I do whenever I'm thinking about, I chopped an onion the other night and I see
Yeah.
it as means to an end and I'm focused
Hmm.
on the end result. And I
Yeah.
could just really try to enjoy chopping the
Yeah.
onion.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like as a coach, you ever think, man, I'm such a hypocrite? Or is that
Oh my
just
God, all the
okay?
time. Like, yeah, I mean, like, first off, like, even here, like, I've definitely chopped onions or other vegetables and hated every second of it and not tried.
Right.
Although, at least recently, I'll at least try to like see
Yeah.
what it feels like to enjoy it a little more. And I also noticed like certain awarenesses and insights will come to you when you're coaching. You're like, have you ever thought of it this way? And somewhere in the back of my brain is like, well, we never thought of that, dude, or we never tried that. Like,
It's really great advice that you should
Right,
take
like,
for yourself.
and 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 I think that's sort of maybe partially just a natural part of life is that
Yeah.
it's easier to see something in someone else than in ourselves. But that's actually part of the beauty of being a coach too, is that it's also a self-development process, right? Because in the work, you do get these little nuggets where you're like, maybe I would try that.
Yeah.
Now that I see it in that person, it would be interesting to see how that might show up for me. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's very common to be, um, aware of what another person might benefit from. And while like, I'm sure there are things I've said to my clients where it took me 6 months before it finally came back to me and was like,
Oh,
oh, I
absolutely.
could try that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I should do that thing that I told somebody.
yeah, yeah.
In fact, well, a friend of mine, so Sue Barber, who who's on your
Hmm.
podcast, and that's how
Sure.
I met you. She and I will box her back and forth, and there have been times that I will share a frustration, or she'll share a frustration, and we'll box her back to the other. You know what? This is actually something that you said you helped somebody else with last week. Like I'm asking, or I'm sharing this frustration.
Yeah.
There's the same frustration a client had,
Yep.
and I knew what they should do, or
Yeah.
I was able to point out within them, like, hey, this is something that you shared. And then she shares that back to me. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, and we've both done it to one another. It's just,
Yeah.
and I know that's one thing too that held me back for a long time. Like, how in the hell do I think I can coach somebody when I don't have my own life figured out? Well, none of us do. So it's fine. It's
None of us do. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I think you're touching on something that occasionally frustrates me in I'll call it the coaching sphere or whatever, but like
fine.
the online coaching world. Sometimes coaching, people have sort of a bad taste in their mouth about what coaching means because
Yes.
it can feel like people sitting on kind of on high going, let me grace you with the way to live a better life. Right. And I'm
Oh,
sitting there
it's
like
so
that.
funny.
First of all, that's not coaching. Like it's not,
No,
we don't sit there and just say, this is what you should do. But also,
right.
um, showing up as somebody who quote unquote has it all figured out is probably not the best way to show up because everybody knows that that's BS.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
like,
You can
of
smell it.
course, inevitably, like, some of those coaches, something will inevitably happen where like, oh, they had an affair or they did something. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, who are you? And instead of just being like, we're all humans trying to figure it out, I happen to have some skill and some training in how to create these conversations.
Yeah.
And that's something that I happen to be pretty good at, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean I have my whole life figured out. And I think that that distinction for me, I like working with a coach because I know that they're figuring it out. If a coach kind of has that energy of I'm the person, I am the guru, it's like what do you then you don't actually know what it means to be human.
Right. I don't
Like,
even want to have a conversation with you. Actually, a
yeah,
conversation would be interesting, but I would certainly
yeah,
want to be friends.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, that's an ongoing thing. I think coaching has this weird guru energy sometimes online
Hmm.
that I think is not
Yeah.
doing coaching as a whole a good service. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we are openly figuring it out, TJ. So clearly people
Yes.
work with us.
Yes. I think there is no mistaking us for gurus. Yes.
Let's just make that clear right here,
Yes.
folks, in case it wasn't. So
Absolutely.
this is clearly an example of when I'm in flow because we've been talking for a long time, TJ, and
Yeah, it's
it's going
fun.
to take your whole afternoon. So, okay, I need you to, I don't need you to, but I would very
Yeah.
much like you to make a sound. So can you explain, TJ, what I'm talking about and what you do on your
Yeah.
podcast?
So in my podcast, and I kind of don't even remember exactly how it started, but I think when I was playing with my mic when I first got it, I was just making sounds to test the mic, and I just had a lot of fun with it. And so now in my podcast, you'll I have cat sounds and other things in every episode, in the beginning and the end, and I invite the guests to make a sound that always shows up in the episode. So a lot of it's animal sounds. Other people make other weird noises, and it can be almost anything, something more musical. Um, so yeah, so I know you made a lovely chicken sound
It was
on
lovely.
your episode. Um, so yeah, I'm thinking, I know I think I did some meows on that episode as well, but I could do one here. I could do a meow, you
Oh, that's
know,
good.
kind of a little more guttural one. I don't know if I have it in me, but I'm going to try. Maybe I'll take a drink of water because I can sometimes do a horse, but we'll
Do you
see.
need to do some stretching? Because I welcome that.
I may. Let me see here. All right.
Yeah, whatever needs to happen.
I
That was incredible. Was it the stretching that helped? Did that
think
help?
the stretching was the whole thing. Yeah. 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 It's weird. Actually, when I stretch, I always make that noise.
So you
My,
haven't been invited back to a lot of yoga classes.
yeah, no, I definitely like yoga does not work for me. Late at night here when you're getting tired and you're kind of doing the thing, my wife and our cats are a little bit confused because there's a lot of horse noises happening.
Okay, that makes me think. I just love how open you are to like, you know what? I'm going to have people on my podcast do do sounds. I love it
Yeah.
because I know I am still recovering in some ways, and I have to tell myself. I have to remind myself frequently, oh, wait a minute, Sherry, you're not in a normal job anymore. You can
Hmm.
have people do sounds or whatever,
Yeah.
right? I guess I
Yeah.
could have done that in meetings in my corporate world, but that just would have been it would have been irrelevant for sure. Any topic we ever had on the agenda. But
Uh-huh.
I find myself sometimes thinking, oh, maybe that's not professional enough. And which is ridiculous because I know intellectually it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter. But so can you tell us about the fact that your business is called The Pudding Factory, the fact that
Yeah.
you have cat sounds on your podcast, I
Yeah.
love your posts, everything. What goes through your mind? And do you ever have to remind yourself that, yeah, you can do cat noises? It's fine.
It's interesting, right? I think, I did get conditioned by working in advertising for years because you are thinking this way more frequently. Like, what would
Right.
be interesting, different, weird? What would catch people's attention? Um, there are times, where I think it goes the other way, where I'm like, am I possibly, you know, ostracizing possible people because they might be like, why would I talk to the person who's called the pudding factory or whatever? Like, and maybe that's true, but I think my general belief is I believe that work is better when it's more fun.
Hmm.
Like, kind of similar to we were talking about that idea of enjoyment. Like, my best work experiences have been ones where I can have fun and the people around us are having fun. So I firmly believe that to be true. I definitely believe when you think about your own development, it should not be a head down, force this exercise. And it
Hmm.
shouldn't be let me be a proper corporate citizen. Like, the good stuff happens when we let go a little bit. And that may not always be like making cat and horse sounds, but it could be just like lightening the mood a little bit. It could be telling a joke. It could be opening yourself up to just going deeper into stuff. And I think that's what I'm trying to invite with all that stuff. The name, the Pudding Factory. I mean, if you check my website, there's the backstory on where that comes from. And it was basically, this is going to sound completely bonkers, but it came from a conversation with one of our cats. So
What? I
'cause
did not. I have not seen that. What?
yeah,
'Cause I've been looking at your site and
yeah,
and I laugh every time. And my 14-year-old, by the way, is in love with your posts now too. 'Cause I'm like, look, he has
I
a
love that.
testimonial from Abraham Lincoln. I love it. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So, but that's just, I mean, partially that's just who I am.
Yeah.
And part of it is me trying to invite and attract people who like that energy. I mean, if you're somebody who wants to be coached or develop your learning, your leadership skills in a way that is very formal, I'm probably not your guy. And it's not that every coaching session is going to be this like laugh riot. That's not, it's just like, let's just show up as us.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really trying to invite is like, be who you are. I think most of us enjoy a little bit of lightness and levity. And I think one of the reasons why I think work sucks is because we take it so seriously and we create these weird languages that we all speak with the acronyms and all the weird terms and the circling back and the blah, blah, blah. Like, so we're all speaking this weird sort of semi-foreign language. And it's like, there is this roboticness to it. So I'm trying to chip away at that a little bit. And it doesn't just like, you can work in advertising and be open to that, but you can work at an insurance firm, an accounting firm, and also be open to that. I think your work will be better and your work experience will be better and your career will be better if you welcome a little bit of that energy.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. Oh my gosh, we've gone a long time. Okay, so I want to keep talking. So a couple questions for you.
Sure.
What would this version of TJ tell younger version? Whether it was when you were 18 and I mean, let's say you were open to a conversation with that version of yourself.
Yeah. I think the main thing I would try to convey a couple things. One, like just you're going to be fine, dude. Like it's going to be okay. Like don't agonize too much over it. And just be patient with yourself. It's not always going to seem easy. It's not always going to seem obvious. And that's just what life is. And it's actually okay. And then I would say the most important thing is who are you spending it with? So pay as much attention to who you're with each day, whether that's in terms of your ultimate, relationship, marriage, whatever, but also just the friends you make, the family members that you really connect with. Like that's the stuff. The more you spend time with people that you love and you care about and you enjoy and you have fun with, all the other stuff happens more naturally and easily.
Yeah. And that's what ultimately matters.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Love it. Okay. And where can people find you, TJ? I encourage everyone to go to your website. And I clearly missed something out there about how it starts. Like
you got to scroll all the way to the bottom of the homepage to find the story of the pudding factory origin. But yeah, so the puddingfactory.net is where I'm at now. Although I did just purchase, what did I purchase? I purchased DesuckifyWork. So I may also turn that into a thing, but we'll see. So there's that. Then I'm on Substack. If you look for DesuckifyWork on Substack, that's where you'll find my blog, and my podcast is hosted there. My podcast is also on YouTube. And then LinkedIn is probably, I'm hanging out there every day like the rest of us. Not quite sure what we're doing, but, trying to have a little fun there and trying to just continue to cultivate fun and interesting relationships. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And truly everyone, I think should, well, not everyone, certain people aren't going to appreciate your cat sound.
Yeah. That's okay.
That's all right. They're not going to appreciate it. But truly and so Sue reached out to me and she said, Sherry, you need to know TJ. He invites people to make sounds on his podcast. And like, yep, I'm in. Sue, you know me well.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad she did.
I am too. So glad.
Yeah.
So, okay. Thank you so much, TJ. Everyone follow TJ, not literally, but, go look at his stuff. And thank you so much for being here, everybody. Thank you so much, TJ. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to the Dash Mindset Podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player, tell your friends, and leave us a review. Follow me on my social media platforms highlighted in the show notes, and get in touch with me at the-mindset.com. Share the topics you'd like me to explore in future episodes. Thanks again for listening to the Dash Mindset Podcast. We'll see you next time. Design and differentiate your dash your way and make today amazing.